Hello everybody, welcome to the MaffmanJones movie channel. I'm your host John Maffio, and today we're going to finally get into Last Jedi spoilers. It's been a few days since this movie released in theaters. I've seen the movie three times, and I could definitely say that I really like this movie, bordering on loving, and I can't understand personally why people are saying that this ruined Star Wars, how Disney has ruined Star Wars, how Rian Johnson, who was a fan of Star Wars for his whole life and took his perspective of what he thought would be the next great story, progressing from what we had in Force Awakens, and just straight up insulting him. But you know what? I guess that's fandom. People get really close and personal with these things so that when it affects them, when it doesn't go the way they want it to go, or, you know, they just kind of feel a certain way, people get unhinged. Like a Kylo Ren. But keeping with that conversation about fandom, I do want to say that there is a way to have an active, engaging conversation, a discussion about whether or not you like the movie. If you didn't like the movie, it's fine. If you hated the movie, it's fine. But there are ways to convey your feelings without being insulting, without trying to spread hatred and anger. We shouldn't be Jedi and sit out there defending what we personally believe is right or wrong and saying anything else is blasphemy. There's a way to talk about this with, you know, being friendly. And I think that's important for fandom across the board, not just Star Wars, for anything. So, for those of you who, for example, are saying that if you love this movie, or if you like this movie at all, you don't like Star Wars, you're an asshole, you suck, you shouldn't be allowed to exist, or anything that ridiculous, take a second, relax, breathe, just breathe, and let's talk about this like civilized people. So I'm going to get into what I don't like first, and it mainly concerns Canto Bight. I do like the idea of Canto Bight. I like the idea of characters going to a planet that is full of wealthy people doing wealthy things for war profiteering, and they're basically benefiting off the war. That's really, I like that idea, but the execution of that subplot was iffy. It was wonky. I like the idea of fathiers, these giant horse-like creatures. They're really cool, but the way they're utilized in the movie to convey feelings on animal cruelty felt a little forced. Like, no pun intended. I like how the movie comes back around to the kids in the very last part of the movie, and we find out that this, I think his name is Taramir Blag, this kid has the Force, and it shows that there are potential Jedi out there in the world. There always have been. That's how they were recruited back in the day, from what I understand. But yeah, Luke will not be the last Jedi. I just don't like, going back to Canto Bight, how it was executed. We kind of don't spend enough time just engulfed in this world. We just go straight to Rose and Finn trying to find Justin Theroux, who is the real reason they're there, and they get arrested, and they find Benicio del Toro with the stutter. And he's DJ, another cool character, but I think he wasn't executed to the best ability. I liked his dialogue. I liked the part where he took the Hasnian smelt from Rose and then gave it back to her. It was kind of sweet, and it gives that character a little bit more dimension, because I think that he's doing things for a reason. He's a little shady, but he could have his nice moments too. But I think there wasn't enough with him, so that when he betrays them again, it just kind of feels like the movie is doing it for the sake of doing it to move the plot forward. But I do like how it ends the character for this movie, where Finn's like, you're wrong about this, and then he's like, maybe. But I do think there was a better and tighter way of constructing that Canto Bight subplot and then bringing us back to the Resistance at some point. I do not also like the way Maz Kanata was in this movie. I like Maz Kanata as a character, but that whole hologram union meeting thing was really, in my opinion, silly. It was a little confusing, and it was just weird. The second two times I saw this movie, I was also trying to figure out a good reason for why Admiral Amilyn Holdo withheld information from Poe that they were just fueling up the transport ships to go to Crate. But I can't really think of a good reason why she held that information from him. She probably could have told him and made things a lot easier. I'm guessing, I don't know if there was a scene missing there, or we maybe needed a little more dialogue or more motivation from Holdo for her reasoning why. Maybe Amilyn Holdo had experience in the past of revealing information to flyboys, as she calls them, because he was a hothead in this movie, Poe, and she trusts Leia with her life, and she was just doing what she thought was right by Leia. I think we could have had another scene or just more dialogue to convey that she was feeling some type of way about not telling Poe anything. And then being very nitpicky, I guess that first joke of the movie with Poe Dameron waiting on hold for Hux is a cute moment, but the first time I saw it, I was like confused for a second. I'm like, oh, it's like phones. Oh, okay. And then he mentioned something about his mom. Like, I'm holding for his mother. It's about his mother. It's a cute moment, but I could have done without it, to be honest. But other than those issues, criticisms, I really like the direction of the storytelling from Rian Johnson. I loved the Submarinal Dreadnought bridge with that guy, Captain Canady, who I think he's one of the best parts of this movie, even though he's just in the beginning. He's just kind of like, what are you waiting for? Blast that resistant base! Let's do it! Ah! My throat hurts. I really enjoyed his commanding presence and the way he was just screaming his dialogue, and it just reminded me of like the back and forth, like an actual war. Like, you have commanders who are like that, and it's just, I love that. The first action scene of this movie is very impactful, and I think it leaves a mark for the rest of the movie as we see like the resistance. They're being picked off. The entire movie is a giant chase scene. It's like, as my friend described it, it's like a slow version of Mad Max Fury Road. But I like the idea of the resistance on the run, and they're just losing all of their reinforcements. Everybody, like most of the bombers in this movie, are destroyed, and it's up to this one. It's led by Paige Tico, who is the sister of Rose, and that scene, I really like that. It's the sacrifice had a big impact on the rest of the movie for me, and it's one of the big reasons why I liked Rose, because I liked her complimentary acting to doing what she thought was right for her sister. Oh, and I actually forgot something I didn't like, was actually the ending of the movie, where Finn was gonna sacrifice himself, and I really genuinely thought for a few moments, oh my god, they're gonna kill Finn. But then Rose comes out of nowhere and crashes both of them down, and she has that really cheesy line about fighting with love, saving what you love. And she kisses Finn, and Finn kind of was like, he was taken aback by it. And if Luke Skywalker happened to not show up, that would have been horrible for the Resistance, because they would have been fucked. Because they blew a door wide open in that base after that moment happened, but Finn would have stopped that. But Rose is like, no, we're going to win this war by saving what we love. They're like, no, dummy, as you called Finn a dummy. He was doing something admirable there. He was doing something that he thought was right, and he was in that moment. But you took that away from him. But I guess now we'll have a romantic subplot with Rose and Finn in episode 9, because he feels affectionate that she saved his life. And Rey and Poe are going to be a thing. And it seems like one of those love at first sight things also. But I really would rather have a Rey and Kylo. But Kylo is not coming back to the light, especially after this movie. I really thought there was some redemption in his character, but after this movie, nope. I was also a big fan of the direction they took with Luke Skywalker. Now, you think after 30 years between Return of the Jedi and this timeline that, yeah, he normally would just become a disgruntled old man. But the reasoning behind that, I was a fan of it. I liked that he had this fleeting moment of shame when he was going to kill Ben Solo because he felt the darkness within him growing. And that was the whole reason why the Jedi Temple got destroyed, and why the Knights of Ren was formed, and why the First Order became what it was. The whole him throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder when it's given to him in the beginning of the movie, it sets a tone for the rest of the movie of just subverting expectations, and I really like that. To be honest, at first I was like, oh, all that build up just for him to do that? Wow. But to be honest, after what he's been through, I don't know if he would do it exactly like that. In that sense, it did kind of feel like a shocking moment just for audience's sake, but I'm sure he would do something to the extent of, no, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't. Luke agrees to give Rey 3 lessons. He only does 2. He never gets to give a 3rd lesson, so I'm wondering if we're going to get that 3rd lesson with Luke as a Force Ghost in the next movie. But after a movie like this, I'm not expecting anything to happen anymore, because people made theories and speculative ideas for 2 years for most of them to be just wiped out completely in the most shocking ways. In simple ways, too, really. With Rey's parents and Snoke, especially. I realize now that I have another problem going into the lessons with Luke Skywalker and Rey. Rey has some really interesting scenes, especially with Kylo, but I don't still understand why she's as powerful as she is. She gets a couple lessons. She really trains herself with the lightsaber, not with Luke, but she's somehow very capable of taking down Praetorian guards, and she's still she's just very capable as a character to be wielding a lightsaber and to be kicking ass, but we don't really learn much of how she is that skilled. If she was just some nobody who had parents who sold her off and they were drunks. How did she get as competent as she was? And even in Force Awakens, how did she get that competent there? Unless Kylo was straight up lying about that, and they both are deceptively wrong about what they know or what they think they know about her parents, it gives me a feeling of bamboozlement. That's not even a word, is it? But I feel bamboozled. I feel flabbergasted about why Rey is as powerful as she is still. I should have probably thought more about this because I'm just jumping all over the place. But yeah, I really, again, moving back into that with Luke, I really liked what they did with this character, and I liked that moment with Yoda as a puppet. The Empire Strikes Back puppet, it appeared like. I really liked the moment, and Yoda was all goofy. He summoned lightning with the Force, which is interesting also, that you could actually affect the real world as a Force ghost. I also really liked the idea of him using the Force to project himself to another planet, and it basically just sucked the life out of him, literally, because after that he was at complete peace and he just died. And I can't lie, I would have liked to see him live, but I think in that moment, for the story's sake, it was a good way for him to go. But I'm guessing, because Kylo mentioned it earlier too, that the effort in projecting yourself would kill you. He was using all the strength that he had in that moment to be on that planet to confront Kylo Ren. And I really liked the direction of that scene, and I loved the dialogue from Kylo. He just has this pure, unhinged anger, and I love Kylo in this movie. Ben Solo improves. He's one of the best characters in this whole new thing that we're doing with Star Wars now. But I liked his relentlessness against a very patient Luke Skywalker who was just trying to prove a point. And he had that recalling dialogue from Obi-Wan, "If you strike me down, I'll always be with you, just like your father." And I also really liked, I cried. I didn't cry the first time, but the next two times before the movie, I got emotional, really choked up and emotional, when Luke shows up in Crate and talks to Leia. That whole scene, I got super emotional. Going back to Kylo Ren, I think some of the best scenes in this movie were the moments where Kylo and Rey were communicating with each other via Snoke through the Force. The way it was filmed and the way it was executed, you felt like they were both there. You just feel like everything gets sucked out. The energy out of the room gets sucked out, and all you could hear is their voices, and it's like an empty vacuum. And there is, I can't lie, there is like this weird sexual drive going there, and I felt it the second two times I saw this movie. In the later scenes where they're communicating, you really feel like they have a connection there. And if Ben Solo happened to turn to the light side and stay with Rey instead of being like, "No, I'm furthering my agenda, I want to say evil, join me," I think they would have gotten down. They would have had very passionate lovemaking, and then they would have been together. And I don't know how that would work with the Force balancing, because they would both be on the light side of the Force, because this movie kind of shows that, you know, they balance each other out, like dark and the light. It's just, you could tell that once Rey saw Ben shirtless, she was like, "Yeah, I could convert him to the light side, and then I could totally get after that ass." Going into Amilyn Holdo, the character worked more for me because I read the Leia book, but I also think she could have had more character development. But besides that, though, her main moment, her critical scene, where she uses the Radish ship to just go light speed into the entire First Order, the music stops, you have that explosion that happens afterwards. That is one of the best moments in the entire movie. Also, the entire sequence on Crete, I was a big fan of, minus what I already talked about with Rose and Finn. The whole thing with Luke Skywalker, those sky speeders, I love the way that the sand like comes up and it's red, and the detail in where the ships are going. There's a wide shot when they're all coming towards the AT-M6s, the Mega Caliber 6s. Yeah, I know that. The gorilla-looking AT-ATs. But just the immense detail of where they're shooting, where the sand comes up, and where like the ski speeders are leaving their marks. Like, I love that detail. And I love that part where the guy, like, he licks the ground and he's like, "Salt." That's gonna be a meme. For anybody who's salty about this damn movie, just post a gif of him going, "Salt." I just loved everything visually about the planet of Crete. Let's talk about the throne room sequence. That red room is also very visually appeasing. I really enjoyed that whole thing with the Praetorian Guards. That sequence with the Praetorian Guards was awesome. The moment where Kylo and Rey just team up and they're like in sync with each other as they're kicking ass. The moment where they kill Snoke, I love the moment because it subverts expectations, but in a good way. We don't need to know anything about Snoke. It falls in line with Star Wars, with the Sith, how they always want to like one-up each other, and like this. It appears to me that Sith always have a drive to want to be the top macho, and they always want to kill each other, master and apprentice, so that idea I was really big a fan of. And it led into a great lightsaber sequence, but never once in this movie do two lightsabers interconnect. Never. When Kylo and Luke fight, he's astral projecting, so he's not actually fighting anybody. And then Kylo and Rey, they're fighting together, but they're never fighting each other. So this movie doesn't have any lightsaber fights. Also, that controversial moment, which I liked beforehand, where Kylo actually doesn't kill his mother. He actually uses his light side tendencies that he's still feeling to ignore what he's about to do. And then two TIE fighters just come in and blow it up. Admiral Akbar dies. The whole bridge gets destroyed. Leia supposedly dies in a very shocking moment. But then she uses the Force, and she's surrounded by Force bubbles, I guess. She like gives herself oxygen. She floats back to the ship. And people think it's like, oh, she's like Superman. Ooh, it's weird. Ooh, it ruins Leia. Like, nah. I actually think I enjoyed that moment because it never bothered me the first time, and I enjoyed watching it the second and third time. It's weird. It's strange, yeah. But I don't think it's a bad moment. I think it's a cool demonstration of Leia using the Force. But I could definitely see in this regard where people are coming from, where it looks so ridiculous that it took them out of the movie for a second. There's a lot more finality to The Last Jedi in a middle chapter movie than you would expect, with Snoke and the Resistance coming together, and the ending of the movie with the kid like having hope, and even Phasma with a cool sequence between her and Finn where it is a Rebels moment where like you can see her eye, but her dying too. There's a lot more finality to this movie than you would expect from middle chapter, and I kind of like that, but also it gives you no idea, no speculation as to really what's going to happen in episode 9. It's almost like a clean slate for episode 9, besides the fact that we know the First Order and the Resistance are going to fight. Kylo and Rey are probably going to confront each other and have another fight, unless something completely different happens. And that's really the gist of it. The Resistance are probably going to get more people on board now because the spark has been lit. And the First Order is just going to double down on their wealth. But going overall, again, I have problems with the movie. I have problems with some of the storytelling decisions. And some things that are left unexplained. But I do really like this movie. And also really borderline loving it. I've watched it 3 times and it's gotten better for me every single time. The first time I was just processing everything, and that's why I released a review where I felt like I was just processing. In terms of direction and storytelling, I was a big fan of Rian Johnson's take on Star Wars, and I'm just being so unsure of where we're going next kind of excites me. I like that we feel unsafe in a world where Star Wars can be very easily just very pleasing fan fiction where we just give satisfying moments the entire way and not challenge viewers. I like the way that he took a lot of speculation that people had for 2 years, basically just went like that. In a way, I admire it. It's bold, it's ambitious, and I could really appreciate that. Thank you, Rian Johnson, for bringing a kick-ass movie that just really, it's dividing a lot of people. The impact it's having on people right now may feel like a burning forest fire, but I think in due time, we'll be in a very, very good place with this movie. I truly think that. But now I'm throwing it to you guys. For those of you who have stuck around this entire video and watched me talk for the past 25, 30 minutes, whatever it's been. I can't tell, I haven't edited yet, but thank you for staying the whole way and not getting annoyed by my face. But yeah, anything I didn't mention that you want to talk about, let me know down below. I know I forgot to mention everything about Poe being a hothead, but what moments didn't you like? What moments did you like? Do you agree with what I was saying about the direction of episode 9 and how we have no idea where we're going to go? Talk about anything Last Jedi and how it's going to have an effect on the future in the comments down below. Let's get spoilery. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and comment down below, as I mentioned. And check out my Stardust down below also, where I review movies in 30 seconds or less. I had a couple spoiler segments where I talked about some moments I liked coming out of the theater seeing this movie. And if you love movies and you love reactions to movies, you should definitely check it out and follow me. I'm just a man sitting in front of a camera talking about Star Wars, and I can talk about Star Wars all day. I'll see you guys next time.